ANC have a president who is not the head of state? What can be made of President Jacob Zuma's announcement of a commission of inquiry into state capture? Can the ANC's majority in the National Assembly have a bearing on the outcome of an impeachment process? What lessons has the ANC learned from former President Thabo Mbeki's removal from office in 2008? What time is it? It's question time. Khotsong Kurula Mraro. My name is Mpho Tsedu. The African National Congress finds itself in a rather precarious position. Party officials, including newly appointed or elected President Cyril Ramaphosa, are currently in the Eastern Cape. This as they put the final touches on preparations for the January 8 statement to be delivered by Ramaphosa on Saturday. It is just a month to go before the State of the Nation address takes place. The question is, who will deliver this address? Currently, the Subcommittee of Parliament's Rules Committee is engaging on formulating procedures for impeachment. This follows a directive from the Constitutional Court for the National Assembly to kickstart this process. The highest court in the land ruled in December that the National Assembly failed to put in place mechanisms and processes to hold President Jacob Zuma accountable. This included failure to implement former Public Protector Thuli Madonsela's remedial action regarding non-security upgrades at his home in Nkandla. In a turn of events, President Zuma announced late on Tuesday that he has appointed Deputy Justice Raymond Zondo to head the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture. We are live. Therefore, you can call us 089-110-4210. If you're outside the borders, +27-89-110-4210. Tweet us, our Twitter handle at QuestionTime24. And a reminder that you can also live stream us on our Facebook page, SABC News Online, and our YouTube channel, YouTube.com/SABC Digital News. My guest today is Dr. Faisal Randera. He's an ANC veteran. And before we get into the show, though, let's firstly take a look at this clip.
After careful debate and discussion, the NEC decided to recall Comrade Thabo Mbeki. This was one of the most difficult decisions the NEC has ever had to take in the history of the ANC.
Fellow South Africans, I have no doubt that you are aware of the announcement made yesterday by the National Executive Committee of the ANC with regard to the position of the President of the Republic. Accordingly, I would like to take this opportunity to inform the nation that today I handed a letter to the Speaker of the National Assembly, the Honorable Baleka Mbete, to tender my resignation from the high position of President of the Republic of South Africa, effective from the day that will be determined by the National Assembly.
That was President Thabo Mbeki on the day that he handed over his resignation letter, and severe consequences, of course, followed there. Let me welcome you to the show, and perhaps before we even talk about the current, the reason why we called you in, today there was a memorial service of Brawili, a fellow veteran in the struggle against apartheid, more especially in the ranks within the African National Congress.
Look, it was a sad moment to come back into the country. I'd been out of the country for a week. And I hadn't taken my phone with me, and one of the first things I read on my phone was the death of Comrade Professor Wuli Khosatsile, who I've known for many years and has also been a humble, dedicated stalwart of the ANC from the 1950s and onwards. I, of course, did not know him in exile, but I got to know him when he came back into the country and returned from America. So it is truly a sad moment for South Africa. And also our condolences go out to the family, his wife, and his children.
Yeah.
And his grandchildren.
Yes. Well, I guess indeed it represents the ending of an era. You know, a particular generation within the African National Congress is passing by. The generation that remains is this one that just emerged out of the 54th National Conference. And a dilemma now exists. How does the ANC approach this?
Well, firstly, let me start by congratulating President Cyril Ramaphosa, President of the ANC, for his election to this very demanding task. We also wish to congratulate all the NEC members who've been elected. It does start the beginning of a new history. 2017 and the 54th Congress hopefully was a break from what we have experienced over the last several years. And what we want to see coming out of the January 8th statement is a very clear exposition that says by the President and by the ANC, NEC, because remember he is reflecting the views of the NEC that met yesterday.
Correct.
But undoubtedly it will be a well-crafted statement that can take the people of South Africa with this new president of the ANC and into a new era that we can all look forward to. One thing for sure, if we look at last year's January 8th statement, it was after the resounding losses that the ANC had suffered in the local government elections.
Yes.
President Zuma talked about humility and commitment, that the ANC leadership had listened to the people, that introspection had taken place after the electoral losses that had been suffered by the ANC. Although we still remain the strongest party in the country. But did we see that in implementation? Did we walk the talk, in other words? And I think I speak for many of our fellow countrymen to say that we did not see that. Now that is where President Ramaphosa has to be seen to be making a big break from the past. He is now the president of the ANC. He has a new NEC that he can talk to, that he can respond to. Yes, we know that the elections were very closely fought. We know that going into the elections there were 7 candidates standing or 8 candidates standing, but at the end there were 2 candidates and the voting was very close. Now, does that then result in a divided ANC going forward, or does it talk to a united ANC? Okay. President Ramaphosa is going to have to do a great deal. Of course, we know it can't be business as usual. We know it's going to be a difficult task, but as he moves forward and the NEC moves forward, one question that is going to be foremost in their minds is, can we continue to have 2 centers of power?
Okay. Wise men, welcome.
Good afternoon, Paul, and good afternoon to your guests, and Happy New Year, my brothers.
Yes, thanks, Angos.
Yes, for, if Jacob Zuma cared about ANC, he was going to resign voluntarily, without impeachment, without even a National Executive Committee of the ANC recalling him. And if ANC cared about South Africans, if Zuma don't resign, ANC was going to recall Jacob Zuma. This is not about divisions within the ANC. We don't care about such. This is about the South Africans. This is about the South Africa that keep on going down each and every day. We don't care about the divisions within the ANC. The ANC must just do the right thing. Thabo Mbeki, you see, Thabo Mbeki, there were no organizations like this, say South Africa and people, the DA were there, the opposition were always there. They never asked for Thabo Mbeki to be recalled. But why is it difficult for ANC now to recall a one man? I'm not a member of ANC. I'm a proud EFF member, but let me tell you the truth. If ANC can recall Jacob Zuma, they can bring a lot of support to the ANC. But I don't want to say they are stupid. That is a very good language, but they can't think, man.
Would it include you, Wise?
Sorry?
I'm saying, would that support, huge support you're referring to, include you?
No, I never supported. In my life, a political party that I supported was EFF. I never even voted. My first vote in my life was EFF. EFF is the only hope for me.
Okay.
Including then, when there was the time of Nelson Mandela and Thabo Mbeki, I never participated in voting up until the EFF was created. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Wise. Thanks very much. Well, it's a, I don't want to say popular, but it's a narrative that's out there which is being expressed. Do you share the same view that?
Well, look, the narrative has been there for some time. The stalwarts and veterans, prior to going to the National Consultative Conference and the declaration of the National Consultative Conference, called for President Zuma to be recalled. Now, even prior to the vote of no confidence that took place in Parliament, in the legislature, we had written a letter to the NEC, asking the NEC to take responsibility in terms of the leadership that we had given to them, and that this was an opportunity for them to actually say, yes, it's time, President Zuma, for you to leave. Now, the narrative can play out in many different ways. The one way is that, of course, he still remains the president of the country. You referred to the Constitutional Court judgment in December. It's going to come up in the legislature very quickly. We would hope that the NEC, I know that yesterday was just preparing for the January 8th statement, which is being read on January 13th this time. But their meeting next week will need to discuss very comprehensively what is the best way for the ANC and for the country.
Okay. Let's go to Harry Smith. Sam? Sam? Okay, Sam is no longer there. But Ace Magashule says there are no two centers of power. There's only one center of power, which is Sour Street, Lutuli House.
Well, you know, I think we've seen this narrative also play itself out, where we agree that the ANC takes a number of policies, that those policies are to be implemented once the national elections take place. Now, the constitution of the ANC is very different to the constitution of the country.
Yeah.
The constitution of the country elects from the legislature the president of the country. Now, of course, the ANC being the dominant party in the legislature, we will actually therefore have that responsibility of electing the president. But the responsibilities are very different. Yes, the president is meant to come back, but we've seen a number of examples. We saw that with the recall of the former Minister of Finance, Finance Minister Nene. We saw that with the changes that took place in the cabinet. Was there necessarily the discussion that should have taken place within the NEC and also within the top six? We know in all the interactions that we've had with the NWC that robust discussions take place within these two structures of the ANC. But does that necessarily mean that the president takes the views that the NWC and the NEC actually hold him accountable to? Is there sufficient accountability within the ANC? Okay. And I think that's where we would like to see greater accountability taking place. Logically, I would agree with you that the ANC actually should not have two centers of power. But once you have ministers appointed, you have the president appointed, I think it's a different trajectory we are on.
Let's take a quick break. When we return, we'll continue our discussion. 089-1104-210 is the number to dial. Please don't go away.
Show me a greater power on the whole continent of Africa. Show me a greater power anyway.
6th of June 1918 was the establishment of our movement to maintain that.
We need to do something about the educational upliftment of the Afrikaner, and we also need to do something about the economic upliftment of the Afrikaner. And that was the two main goals at that stage in 1918.
The Brotherhood never was a cultural organization. It was a state-capturing organization. It is, in fact...
I like that term.
It has captured the financial systems. It has captured the parastatals. It has captured cultural organizations.
For all your constitutional and legal matters, tune into Rights and Recourse on Sundays between 2 and 3 Central African Time.
Welcome back. You're still watching Question Time. But before we get into our discussion further, let's have a look at what President Zuma had to say about state capture.
It is of such serious public concern that any further delay will make the public doubt government's determination to dismantle all forms of corruption and entrench the public perception that the state has been captured by private interests for nefarious and self-enrichment purposes.
President Jacob Zuma there. Francois, you are in the Eastern Cape. Welcome.
Good evening, Paul, and thanks for taking my call. On the same breath, I'd like to wish you a happy and a prosperous New Year, and to your guest in studio.
Thanks very much.
Paul, first and foremost, man, our country has never before, reached its lowest point as it is right now. And also the ANC, under the watch of President Zuma. The right thing to do for the leadership now is actually to remove President Zuma, because he's a liability not only for the country and for the party at large. Now, the lessons to be learned out of this, every case should be actually treated on its own merit. Previously, the removal of Thabo Mbeki, I think there was not so much ground, although the only problem that I actually, in my view, was the AIDS issue about, what causes AIDS and that. And there was an outcry that he should go and he should go. But with President Zuma, corruption was actually the highest level ever. Our country has been downgraded, and he keep on with excuses. If you take now the Nkandla issue and all that, and having said Nkandla, I hope that also the government should now learn that, every president now on should rather, reside in a presidential residence then that would actually diminish some of these problems. That is all that I have to say, Paul. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Francois. Well, here is the president. 2 days ago, then he announced that, look, you want the State Capture Commission? There you have it. What are the veterans or the stalwarts saying? Are you not giving him some credit?
No, of course we are giving. You know, it's a positive development that has taken place. We remember the Public Protector's report came out several months back. It has taken there's been a fair time that has passed, but the decision has been made. So we look forward to that commission of inquiry that the deputy judge will be presiding over. It's going to take a fair time. I mean, if one just looks at what has happened in this period in which the narrative on state capture has been going on, there are so many different angles, so many different events that have taken place, that it's going to take a fair time to untangle, to unravel. We have a great deal of, I mean, if we go back to the narrative that we discussed early on, and the NEC decides to recall President Zuma, this action and the commission will continue for some time.
Okay. Hold it. Let's go to Centurion Tabo very quickly.
Mbo, my greetings to you and your guest that's in the studio.
Yes, you're welcome.
I want to ask a question.
Yes.
Who in the ANC is keeping President Zuma in power? Because we've been talking about this thing since I think 2 years ago or a year ago. President Zuma is still in power. Who in the ANC is supposed to be blamed? Because the very same ANC is complaining and talking to the public about Zuma must leave. Why they do not take Zuma out? Who in them, amongst themselves, is keeping Zuma in power?
Thanks very much, Tab. Indeed.
Thank you.
Good question. I mean, we know that, you know, at the present time, the power that lies with the NEC. They are the elected leadership of the ANC. We've seen that situation arise, and your clip early on showed that when President Mbeki was recalled after Polokwane, it was the NEC that took that decision. It was a delegation from the NEC that went to the president and relayed the message of the NEC.
So you want the same thing to happen?
Now that's one possibility. I mean, the other possibility is that the president himself says, look, I've served my time. There is a new president of the ANC that has been elected. Yes, I have more time available to serve as the president of the country. But for the good of the ANC, for the good of the country, I'm stepping down.
Okay.
So there are a number of options. We really don't want to go back to a situation where Parliament actually has to have this debate once again.
Okay. I have two issues I want to raise with you, but we have very limited time.
Sure.
30 seconds. If I'm giving you an audience with President Zuma, in 15 seconds, what would you want to say to him? And if I'm giving you an audience with the NEC, what would you like to say to them?
Firstly, to President Zuma, I would say, thank you very much. You have served the ANC and the country, but it's time for you to step down. It's for the benefit of the country. It's for the benefit of the people. What would I want to say to the NEC? I think it can't be business as usual. We've got to actually come out very strongly, not only in statements, but in words and action, in terms of corruption, in terms of reorganizing the ANC, modernizing the ANC, bringing in an integrity commission that has powers, and saying to government, that the institutions of democracy are not functioning very well, and we need to actually make sure that we have the right people in those institutions, whether it's cabinet ministers, whether it's leaders of the various institutions that make up our democracy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I really appreciate your time. Well, time flies when you're having good conversations. That was Question Time for today. A big thank you to my guests and people watching the show. From me and the crew, I